Sharon Schutz, and I'm here with Paulette Carson. She's from Trinity County, and she's running for Congress and going to represent us in Washington if you're elected. And I'm kind of excited about talking to her today because she's been up and down the district. We're in a new district, and we'll be talking about that. We're going to be talking today about what Paulette is doing and what she's going to be doing and what you're going to do when you get to Washington. So, Paulette, welcome.
Thank you so much, Sharon. It's good to be here with you. Appreciate you.
Tell me, of course, I've met your husband and and your son, but tell us a little bit about your family. And I know you've been in Trinity County for 20 years?
23.
23 years. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Alrighty. Well, as she said, I'm Paulette Carson, and my husband Charlie. We have 3 sons. The eldest one's Kyle and his family. They live up in Rains County and a small business owner. And then our middle son, David, he is in the Air Force previously. For many years, he's Lieutenant Colonel, but he just transitioned over to Space Force. They do live just outside the D.C. Beltway in Burke. And just excited for his life and his journey there at the Pentagon, because that we all can agree that that's a dark place and he needs lots of prayers. So thank you all for praying for him. And our youngest son, Caleb, he lives with us on our ranch. We have a ranch up in the Davy Crockett National Forest, and we relocated there after being in the Houston area. But I would like to make one more comment about Caleb. Most of y'all have met him, of course, here. And he's just a lover of souls, and he's a hugger guy. And he's just turned 23 this week. And so he's a grown-up guy. We do keep him at home. He's a high-functioning fella, but we love having him with us at home.
Yeah.
So he's a treasure, and he's very much an inspiration. He loves Jesus. In fact, all of our sons are believers, and their families. We're very, very blessed to have a family of believers.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have friends who have children that have special needs, and I know there's just something about it. You look at somebody who has a child that's a special needs child, and you can see what it brings to the family. It just does something for a family that has one. That's awesome.
Thank you. And
That's so awesome.
I'll just tell you in pure honesty that before we had Caleb, we didn't know he was going to be special needs until he was born. And so it was a bit of a shock. And I asked the question, Lord, what were you thinking? Because I'm an older mom, and I was like, how do I walk this journey out? And so as I began that journey, the Lord just did so many things in us as parents, in the community. And if I had not had Caleb as a special needs guy, I may not have really been exposed to the challenges throughout our district, our county, East Texas. And I'll mention a little bit more about that later, about here in East Texas. But just being a part of that quote-unquote population, and being able to make a difference, not just with our son, but within our district.
Yeah. So what made you decide to run for Congress?
It's a simple answer at first, and then it's a little bit more in depth. But the simple answer is because God called me to do that. And I will be honest to say, what were you thinking, Lord? Are you sure? Because we all know that politics can be a really gruesome place to be involved in. But God very much clearly said, say yes. And I said, yes, Lord. Because every time through my walk as a believer, He's called me to do something of, this is great magnitude, actually. It's a big change. Every time He has said, say yes, I've been very well aware of the fact that He was in it, and He was going to be giving the grace and the strength and the discernment, the wisdom, and just very thankful. The more in-depth story is because we saw with the redistricting of the maps, and you mentioned it a minute ago, Sharon, about we were, District 8, Trinity County, and now we're in 17. And so I was very, very, a little bit disturbed. I would say I agree with you there, because we had a good district. It was a very conservative district. And so for us to be moved out, not just Trinity County, but Houston County and a few others, I don't need to go into the details of that.
Right.
But now we've landed with 14 named counties in a very linear type of geography. And we are very, I would say, predominantly a rural district. And so for me to be seeing the fact that my county, my people, who I was going to be able to represent in a different district, because I had declared I wanted to run, I had to make a choice. Go ahead and go with a district that I wasn't even living in. I said, that's not what my heart would say, and God said, this is where you need to be.
Right.
So I did file with 17, and I was very concerned, and it was just really a perfect fit. Actually, we really believe that God was really in that redistricting for us to have representation here in East Texas. Because of all the candidates in this race for 17, I'm the only one that lives in the East Texas half, if you will, east of the Brazos River. So I'm super grateful that I've been working so many years within our communities, within the Republican Party. More so than that is the grassroots work with the people, the women, the families, the organizations. And so I really believe I have a heart already established over 20 years in our community. So I was excited that God opened that door for me.
Well, we have three people now that we have met in Trinity County, and then of course there's the incumbent from Waco, and I understand, I've been told that the numbers from the Waco area, the county that Waco's in, I can't remember it now, but
McLennan County?
That's what I was thinking, but I wasn't sure. But anyway, that their numbers overpower, the city overpowers the cities here, some of the our larger cities.
Yeah.
And how is that gonna, with you guys, how will that work? I mean, unless we can get out and get the vote out and get people who probably haven't voted before, how do you guys stand a chance against somebody that's been sitting there for 25 years and we have no idea who this man is, but how do you deal with that?
Well, first of all, I want to keep reverting back to my same answer that God. When God's in it, there's no limit. And at the beginning of our campaign, the race, we actually ran the numbers and did the calculations, and what we discovered was awesome. We hadn't realized this, that almost 2 to 1, when the rural counties unite and get the vote out, it's 2 to 1. For what's
Is it
in
really?
McLennan. Yes, we were, and we just were shocked, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
That's why I think when we talk about the rural counties, we all know that have been involved in the political arena and maybe not in elected office, but we've been involved in the grassroots efforts. We know in 2018 and 2020 it was the rural counties that saved the day,
Right.
not the high metropolis areas. And so to answer your question, I truly believe that when our constituents see the value of a rural county vote and get out there and actually inspire them to vote, I think we're going to see a dramatic change. And I think in this day and age, Sharon, and I think you'll probably agree, that people are fed up. I don't care where you live, in America, in Texas. We're fed up with what's happened to our nation, our beloved America and
agree.
Texas. And it's going to be God that's going to get in there and turn things upside down.
Yeah.
And there's only so much people can do, I understand, but God uses us as vessels.
Exactly.
You've mentioned that earlier when we were talking and praying, that God uses us, God calls us. And so I believe with all my heart that God has a plan for America. I do.
Yes.
And plan for Texas. And I want to very specifically say that God has an anointing and a blessing here in Trinity County. We're seeing it come to life. And I'm really grateful for your efforts, Sharon, and what you're doing. You're leading the charge in some very, very important areas here in Trinity County.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You've been up and down the district.
Yes.
Have you been in every county?
Yes.
Tell me about what you found, what you've seen as far as, I know Waco. In fact, I lived there as a child up until about 9 years old, and then we moved to the Houston area. But tell me what you've found in the people and just what's the district like?
It is, it's a treasure. It really is a treasure. And what I will say for me personally, the most important thing is relationship, relationship, relationship. Getting to know the people, and without exception, from the eastern side, which is, of course, Angelina County and Nacogdoches County, and then going westward,
Right.
I have received such an incredibly warm reception. People are excited for multiple reasons, and those that have actually been in District 17 prior to the redistricting, they're very thrilled that I was running, that I am running. And they're thrilled that I come with a very passionate, committed nature. In fact, you know my initials, PC, Paulette, Carson. PC being passionate and committed. And in a little while, maybe we'll have an opportunity just to share a little bit about what I feel like I've been able to accomplish here in Trinity County and Eastern District. But I really believe people, in fact, I was there in Waco just the other day, amidst what you might consider to be the incumbents' territory.
Right.
That women are still telling me, oh, thank goodness, we have an option. And they like what they saw. I believe that they understand and know that my heart is authentically for the people.
Right.
I'm not going to go up there and build a kingdom. I'm not going to go up there to make a fortune. I'm there to serve here in our district and to represent in D.C., not to govern and not to have that kingdom.
Okay, you've mentioned what you've done in Trinity County, and of course I've known you for many years and been part of the women's, Republican women. Tell us about what you have done, and then kind of finish it off with what you see, the vision you have for what you can do in Washington for Trinity County, because that's what matters.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that, and I do just appreciate once again, because we worked together in many years. First of all, I began working in 2010 with one of the campaigns and a former state rep, and got more deeply involved in Trinity County, and began to experience the passion here, the patriot experience. And so it really drew me in. And of course, we had relocated from the Houston area many years there. Let me just digress for just a moment and say that I come from a corporate background of engineering and construction industry. And so had a lot of experience with global contracts, a lot of international experience, which I think is a valuable thing, not only to have domestic experience, but international understanding, finger on the pulse of what's going on overseas in foreign policy, and to be able to identify things that are real and not real that come in the mainstream media. But here in Trinity County, when we were looking for a place to relocate, we chose Trinity County. And we loved being here. We love our peaceful ranch. We love the communities. And so when I started getting involved, I came to a county convention. That was kind of the big launching spot for me. And it was in Groveton, our county seat. And I immediately became a delegate. And I've been a delegate to the state conventions representing Trinity County, every convention. And so in 2014, I came back, and our then party chair, Carl Dyer, I said to him, we need a women's club here in Trinity County, because no offense against the guys, but it's we women that do the lion's share of the work, and with that passion and commitment to our families and our communities. So he said, you're right. So we all gathered a lot of the conservative women, and we said, hey, let's start this. We had a meeting, we got organized, we became the Republican Women of Trinity County, and I served as the first founding president for 2 years. And then later on, of course, as you know, I served again as president in 2019 and 2020, and just experiencing the amazing relationships and the passion amongst the women. And we're all so diverse, have so many gifts to bring to the table, and then the families of these women.
Right.
So it was like we were a big family. And then, so I continued on as vice chair. I was appointed as vice chair from 2012 to 2016, and had just an amazing experience working with the strong Republicans within here in Trinity County. And so then I termed out in the end of 2020, and I got a phone call from the president of the Texas Federation of Republican Women, and she asked to interview me. She wanted to appoint me as her deputy president over the new Region 6, which included Trinity County and Walker County and everything down to the coast and east to Shelby County, and watching the women flourish and grow and be inspired. And, you know, we had all come through a difficult 2020 election and a lot of disappointments and discouragement, but that was not a place for us to step back and say, oh, wow, this is our motivation and our platform to barge forward. And you know, being a powerful woman yourself, that we are called to make a difference.
Absolutely.
We're called of the Lord to make a difference in our communities. And I sometimes struggle with Christians that say, well, I don't want to get involved in politics because it's such a dirty business. And my response is, that is the one place that we need to be in, because we need to bring the light in the midst of the darkness.
You know, we as Christians have done that when television came out. Oh, no, that's a bad thing. We don't want to get involved with that.
Yeah. And
so they took over the airways. Everything,
yeah.
Everything that's new. We don't want to get involved with that because that's bad. That can be bad.
Exactly.
And the problem is, it does get bad because the Christians don't step up.
Right.
And step in and do what needs to be done.
Right.
And a lot of people have a real problem with politics, and it breaks my heart. I don't think politics is the answer. I believe God is the answer.
Yes.
But I know that God uses politics to get the people in place where they can work.
I think he's very strategically placing people. He's been doing it for
Yes,
decades.
he is.
And he's got people in place. And I know I keep referring back to you. I know I'm supposed to be the one being interviewed, but let me just say that just some of the things that you've shared in your heart, which I'll not speak of right now, that God is strategically placing you in areas within this county, you know, creating and starting with the Women of Worship, just as one example.
Right.
What a powerful team of intercessors, because that's the key, is intercession.
Exactly.
And for us to get involved, to pray and to intercede, to stand against the work of the enemy, the deception and the wickedness in high places. I'm not sitting here trying to preach, but that's just the truth.
Right.
And so for us to see God raising up women and men, but I believe very much so that within politics and every other walk of life, because there's some exceptional people here in Trinity County that are skilled in other arenas, and drawing in that areas of expertise in these people, learning from them what's important to you,
Right.
what's important here in our county. That's what I'm doing. So one of the other things outside of the political arena, and I alluded to it earlier about Caleb and being special needs. In about, I think it was 2012, I finally had it with what a lot of the families were experiencing in East Texas in the special needs environment. A lot of medical issues, a lot of insufficient services or non-existent services, doctors that were closing their doors or weren't taking the insurances and Medicaid, et cetera, that so many often have. And just the distances, the medical transportation issue, and having to drive to Houston and Dallas, and it was getting worse and worse, and it wasn't getting any better. So I approached our state rep at that time, and I said, we've got to do something. And he said, yes, you do. And I said, okay. He says, I want you to start a nonprofit. You start getting these families together. We did focus groups. We brought in Health and Human Services Commission. We created an organization called Voices for Special Needs East Texas, covering a whole region. And our group, we began to go to Austin. I worked with the legislators, the Health and Human Services commissioners, and we began to see the dial being moved.
Yeah.
And not just for our little area, but for all of Texas. And that's the whole thing. You're fighting for a bigger picture than what you have here. And so I still lead that. During the COVID years, you know, we saw a real slowing down of our activities outside the area, but we believe we're still making progress. And then the second thing that I feel like God has put in my heart, I have a warrior spirit, I've been told. And I do believe that God has put that in me. But that back in 2001, right after our nation went through 9/11, our whole nation was shaken. And we were broken and hurting, and the nation was crying out to God. And that was actually the only beautiful thing of it, is that people turned to God. But what I became aware of in that time period was the communist regime's impact on women and families in Eastern Europe. And once again, when I'm confronted with issues that are of great magnitude, that are beyond my abilities, God says, for some reason, step forward, say yes. And I'm like, well, Lord, I come from an engineering construction background and all in global contracts. I don't come from what I think you're asking me to do. And that is, they had no translated Bible studies for women. They had no Christian ministries for women over there. They had come under this horrible oppression and suppression, and they needed hope and healing. So God called me to start an organization called Beautiful Gate Translations, to where we go into Eastern European countries, which is in the news right now a lot, and begin to minister to these ladies, take existing English Bible studies and books, get them translated in their countries, supporting their economies and their people,
Right.
helping them, and then being able to, I've been flying over there for 20 years, holding women's conferences, bringing women in leadership and those that want to be in leadership,
Yeah.
training them how to use it, mentoring them over the years, and it's the ripple effect.
Yeah.
That's just what we're going to see here in America with Trinity County, with WOW Women, and things like that. We're seeing the ripple effect. And so what I say specifically about that is that we started off with one language in Romanian, in one country, Romania, and now we're in multiple languages on 5 continents. And I lead that ministry in Trinity County, in my garage apartment office.
Yeah.
And so what can one woman do in Trinity County? A
Yeah.
lot when God's in it. Once again, if God's in it, there's no limit. Then, kind of jumping back into the political arena, when I saw our current state representative is Trent Ashby, and when I saw what was happening, what was exposed to us in our county convention about our military, well, you got to know that I come from a military background. My dad served 20 years. I was a military brat. We moved all over Kingdom Come. And I mentioned earlier about my son David being in the military. So it's not just the military person, it's the families that serve. And so a very strong empathy for our military. Well, one of our other leaders here in Trinity County is Joanne Kennedy. I know she will not mind me saying this because it's public knowledge.
Right. And I know Joanne.
Yeah. And so anyway, her son had an exemplary career in the military. He retired as a colonel, as you know. He came back, and he had property in Walker County, our neighbors. And he discovered, paying his property taxes, that he had lost his ag exemption.
Right.
And that it was only due because he had been deployed, serving our country. And he was being penalized because he hadn't been there to sustain the income-bearing need to have this ag exemption. So I said, oh my gosh, in every which way but loose, that's wrong. So I went straight to Trent and I said, we have got to get a bill drafted that's taking care of this, because we're penalizing and disincentivizing our Texans in military from being property owners. He agreed, filed the bill, 84th session, got stuck in committee, and so I said, file it again in 85th session. And that's where we saw a tremendous move. It came out of Ways and Means, and the Lord really gave it favor. It was unanimous support, bipartisan, to suspend that rule. That's one thing. Recently, in this most recent session, the 87th session, we were dealing with a very strong push for constitutional carry. And I know that's super important in Trinity County and all of East Texas.
Right.
We believe in the Second Amendment. We believe in the Constitution as written, not deconstructed by the current administration. And so when I saw that it was likely not going to get pushed through, I went straight to our state senator, Nichols, and I told him, I said, you need to read the new bill, because I had gotten word that he was not in favor. And he's like, I said, I need you to go read the new draft of the new bill, and you get back with me. And he said, okay. So he did. He read it. And then he called me and said, you're right. I will support this bill. And we got constitutional carry. Now, was I the only one in that effort? No. But I was the one pushing here in Trinity County for that to come through. And so I just feel like I have worked a lot on behalf of our belief system and the moral values that we have here in our, not just Trinity County, but all the district. There's lots of rural folks that are hardworking, decent, Constitution-believing families.
Well, Paulette, I've enjoyed visiting with you today, and I really feel like if and when you get to Washington, they better watch out.
Well, I've said it earlier, thank you so much for this opportunity. But what you see here and what you've seen for the last 23 years is that I am passionate about everything I do, and I do fight for the people. And I trust God and for wisdom and discernment, because that's what's going to be needed.
Right.
As you know, we've talked about that. So thank you for the opportunity to take who I am here to D.C. and battle on behalf of our district and our Texas and America. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.